Hello there. My name is Max Redman, and today we will be talking about America's favorite news sources and any biases that may be within them. The media is one of the most important pieces to Americans' public opinion, and specifically CNN and Fox News are often accused of bias. Today we'll be looking at historical, political, and presidential viewpoints to decipher how biased each source really is. I want to start off with this short clip of both news sources talking about some remarks that President Donald Trump made about immigration.
The President of the United States is racist. All of us already knew that. I was not shocked that Donald Trump reportedly called the majority of Black and Hispanic countries or continents shitholes. I wasn't shocked. I'm not. I'm really not outraged by it. I'm not outraged. I'm tired of being outraged, as a matter of fact.
How the forgotten men and women in America talk at the bar. This is how Trump relates to people. If you're at a bar and you're in Wisconsin and you're thinking they're bringing in a bunch of Haiti people or El Salvadorians or people from Niger, this is how some people talk.
I was there when a young girl named B, who'd been trapped in rubble for nearly a day, was rescued by people who had no heavy equipment. They just had their God-given strength and their determination and their courage. I was there when a 5-year-old boy named Monley was rescued after being buried for more than 7 days. Haitians slap your hand hard when they shake it. They look you in the eye. They don't blink. They stand tall, and they have dignity. It's a dignity many in this White House could learn from.
Today, as you doubtless heard during immigration talks, President Trump said something that almost every single person in America actually agrees with. An awful lot of immigrants come to this country from other places that aren't very nice. Those places are dangerous, they're dirty, they're corrupt, and they're poor. And that's the main reason those immigrants are trying to come here, and you would too if you lived there.
I know that those clips were deep and even a little emotional, but they are an accurate depiction of how each source feels about our current Republican president. To start out the history portion of my analysis, we need to understand that both news outlets have a history. CNN was founded in 1980 by a man named Ted Turner as the first 24-hour news channel in America. Fox News was founded by Rupert Murdoch in 1996. His inspiration for the creation of Fox News was to be an Republican-centered alternative to CNN. While we can sit here all day and night discussing our political views, that's just not the point that I'm trying to make here. Yes, CNN is predominantly Democratic, and yes, Fox News focuses on Republican views. However, we need to understand that news should be objective, and instead CNN and Fox, along with their viewers, bicker back and forth like a bunch of children. I will speak more about unity during my presidential opinion portion of my analysis. For the time being, I got the chance to sit down with Sue Redman, an avid CNN watcher. However, we came to find out that it wasn't always that way. Take a look. Have you always watched CNN?
No, I didn't really follow the news in New York. It wasn't until we moved here to Virginia in the 2016 presidential campaign that I started watching CNN.
What was the reason that you started watching
The controversy over the 2016 presidential election.
Do you think that CNN is biased?
I think they're biased, but not as biased as Fox News.
Really, really great stuff out of Mrs. Redman. As you can see, she even acknowledged that CNN and Fox News were both biased. However, she does feel that Fox News is more biased than CNN. It's no secret that CNN is based off of Democratic views, and Fox News was created to counter that with Republican views. But we really need to understand that this causes bias because CNN leans more towards Democratic views. They aren't objective in what they're reporting. Same goes with Fox News. We need to change this, and instead we're creating arguments between news sources, like I said earlier on, and the people. I do understand, however, that news sources like CNN and Fox are basically our only and best resource for finding out political information. That's objective. However, it should be straightforward. There shouldn't be any of this like discrepancies um, between each source just because they believe different things. It shouldn't be based off of beliefs. It should be based off of what it is. And if you don't believe me when I say that there is a civil war going on within the media right now, just take a look at this clip of Donald Trump yelling and shouting at a CNN news reporter, telling them that they're fake news because of how they misrepresented Michael Cohen. It's honestly embarrassing to watch.
It's a disgrace. And I say that, and that's something that Nazi Germany would have done and did do. I think it's a disgrace. That information that was false and fake and never happened got released to the public. And as far as CNN going out of their way to build it up, and by the way, we just found out I was coming down. Michael Cohen is a very talented lawyer. He's a good lawyer in my firm. It was just reported that it wasn't this Michael Cohen they were talking about. So all night long, it's Michael Cohen. I said, I want to see your passport. He brings his passport to my office. I say, hey, wait a minute. He didn't leave the country. He wasn't out of the country. They had Michael Cohen of the Trump Organization was in Prague. It turned out to be a different Michael Cohen. It's a disgrace what took place. It's a disgrace.
Sir, since you're attacking us, can you give us a question?
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
since you are attacking
No,
our news
not you.
organization,
Not
can
you.
you give us a chance?
Your organization's
You are attacking
terrible.
our news organization.
Your organization's
Can you give us a
terrible.
chance
Let's
to
go.
ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can
Quiet.
you state,
Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you
She's
say categorically,
asking a question. Don't
Mr.
be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a
Don't
question?
be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you
No, I'm
give
not
us
going
a
to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a
Can
question.
you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
Go ahead.
can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not
Go ahead.
appropriate.
Now, after talking to some people, I realized that many people think that this civil war is due to the fact that President Trump is in office. However, personally, I look back and I see that the media has created this war, and it's reaching so far up to the presidency, and it's dividing our country. And we really need to be as one. Like, our entire Constitution is based off of the fact that we are a union, to form a more perfect union. And the media is tearing us apart. Our entire country is now based off of what your political views are. And it's all due to the media, in my opinion. Now understand that I am no politician. I barely know anything about politics. But what I do know is how to respect another person, how to treat them right, and I just think that on both sides, we are treating each other like a bunch of children. We act like children, and we're bantering back and forth constantly, and it's all because of our political opinions. Like I said before, the media is supposed to be objective. The news should be objective. We should be learning what is going on in the world, what is going on in our country, in the government, without it being an argument all the time. I cannot even remember the last time that I turned on my TV and didn't see an argument going on. It's ridiculous. Now, in order for me to get a better understanding of politics and how the media influences politics, or vice versa, I sat down with Taylor Redman, who worked on Capitol Hill, and we discussed how the media truly has an impact on politics and how politics react to the media. Take a look. Now, Taylor, what exactly did you do on Capitol Hill?
I worked as a research associate for a financial services lobbying firm and then also was a finance fellow on a congressional campaign.
What was it like getting a first-hand view of our country's government?
I would say the biggest thing that I took from it is just the pace at which it moves. You could be working on an issue or a project for months and then out of nowhere it could end up dead, and the flip side of that coin is that generally would lead to a consequential new issue that you weren't prepared for and then had to go back and try to condense the time that you had previously spent on something totally new. So the pace at which it moves and just the overall level of chaoticness is something that I would say initially surprised me.
Did the people that you work with ever acknowledge the presence that the media has?
Yes.
How big of a role does the media really have in politics?
I would say the media plays a huge role in mainstream politics and public perception, because most Americans consume their news via television at this point, or social media. That being said, when you're actually in it and working in it, and in my role, I often found myself working on issues and topics that the public paid no attention to, and so to that extent, it does not play as big of a role. But in terms of presidential elections and current affairs, it's at the forefront.
Now, do you think that CNN or Fox News is biased? And if so, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Yes, and I think it exacerbates partisan polarization in this country, especially across the American public. And I think to that point, if you look at history, the more polarized the parties get, there generally leads to a tipping point where they will have to realign, and you'll see a more centric set of ideas kind of emerge. But it's getting to that point, and right now and over the past decade or two, you've just seen those parties push and push further away from each other, and the two, I guess, largest mainstream media outlets being CNN and Fox News only play into that, and I would say exaggerate some of those unconscious biases. And it'll be interesting moving forward to see if we do see a shift towards something a little bit more centric. I also think that if you were looking to avoid some of that bias, the best way to do so would be by reading the news, and reading the news through the most centric and unbiased lens that you can find. Obviously knowing that can be difficult to do.
Now, I don't know about you all, but I found that extremely interesting, especially when he said that you should read the news instead of watch it. I had never thought about that. Now, lastly, we will be looking at 3 different presidents and how they interacted with the media. First, we will start with George W. Bush, then we will move on to Barack Obama, and then, of course, President Trump. To start off with, here's a clip of George W. Bush interviewing with CNN. Later on, you'll see him doing the same with Fox News. Both interviews seem civil and they seem honest. Now, I noticed a significant difference between the 3, but keep in mind, I do not remember much about Bush's presidency, nor do I remember any of the politics going on at that time. He seems so calm and so collected during both of these interviews, and it seems amazing to me because I haven't ever seen this or remember seeing anything like this in the news. Now, President Obama, who was a Democrat, seems very calm, cool, and collected during this interview with CNN. It seems quite pleasant, no confrontation, and it's all business. He's answering questions, he's getting asked questions, and he's answering them truthfully without any sort of negative response. But here is Barack Obama in an interview with Fox News. And I purposefully chose this clip because you really don't need the audio to see what's going on here. You can tell by President Obama's hand gestures and facial expressions and overall body language that he was responding negatively to some of these questions. And then later on in this clip, you will notice that the reporter is doing the same exact thing, and eventually he even starts to laugh at President Obama. That really rubbed me the wrong way. I really don't see a need to laugh in the President of the United States' face when you disagree with him. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but that is just rude and disrespectful. He's our president. Unfortunately, I could not score an interview with President Trump or any of the previous presidents, but to conclude my analysis, I want to talk about why it's important that we avoid the bias in the media. And for me, that's people my age. I'm 19 years old, and I'm considered a young voter. And people my age are so involved in social media, and they're getting their news off of their TV and off their phones, off of forms of social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And the reason this is bad is because we're getting fed information from certain news sources, specifically CNN and Fox News, that is so far leaning to their side of the spectrum that we don't know what to believe at this point. And a lot of us are naive, and we're going to vote in a presidential election because we saw something on one news station that could have been completely wrong, but it aligned with that news station's political agenda. And that's why it's so bad, and that's why I think that we need a serious change in America. This civil war, as I've been calling it, is terrifying, to me especially, because my generation is the one that's going to be leading our country in 20, 30 years, and we're going to be picking up all the scraps from what has been going on lately. And I really don't think that my generation wants to continue this civil war in the road that we're going on. And for that reason, I think that there needs to be a serious change. And I know that I'm not the only person that thinks this, and I feel like objective news is something that we should all want. We don't want this so much opinion and so much discrepancies within the news that we're watching. When I think of news, I think of the truth. I think of what's going on in the world. I think of what's going on in our government. I think of who's running for president, who's going to get elected president. I don't think that within each of those things, there should be an argument. But I really do think that it's up to my generation to clean up the mess and get America on a straight path again, specifically with the media. But I'm Max Redmond. Thank you for watching. This was The Bias Between CNN and Fox News, A Political Civil War. Thank you.